What's good? What is up, everybody? Welcome back to LSU Live. I'm your host, Lewis Johnson. And as always, like and subscribe. Got good vibes going on right now in Baton Rouge. LSU now 3-0, coming off a big win in the SEC opener against Florida, 20-10. Not a lot of offensive fireworks, but hey, you're 3-0, and you face two of the better teams you got on your schedule this year in Clemson and Florida. And after 3 games, you come out unscathed. So it's hard to really complain too much about that. Hope everybody's still riding high after that big win. Stadium was electric. Environment was electric. Huge win for LSU on Saturday night. As you all probably know, after that big win, you had some funny comments, depending on how you look at it, from Brian Kelly. And we want to start there, and not so much about the comments. He's already apologized and everything. Everybody knows what was said and how it came off. But just to give you a glimpse at the bigger picture, I'm making a bigger point when talking about these comments. And full disclosure, I didn't like it when I first heard it. So, of course, Michael Carver of WBRZ, local news station, comes out asking about the offense. And you get Kelly just instantly in his feelings. You just stop. Really? And, the typical Kelly response. And it goes on to talk about how they did what they had to do to win the game. And as I said, when I first saw that and heard those words, my first reaction is like, come on, man. You've been coaching for 30 years. You know that offense wasn't up to par. So you got to expect a question like that. Like, why were you so drove about a question like that? And to Cobble's credit, he didn't back down. He doubled down on that question, and he comes back. All right, well, what about third down? What about the running game? And of course, Kelly just gets more defensive. I mean, Cobble, he was like, "Look, you gonna catch these questions, man. There's no avoiding it." But to Kelly's credit, he came back and apologized for the way that he responded. So since that night, I still think the response was a little extreme, but I've kind of softened my stance on how I felt about that. And it was three things that kind of made me look at it a little differently. First, the national media, it seems like the majority kind of was on Kelly's side. And I think a lot of times when you're so close to things, you can't really see it for what it is. It's like you're so close to it that you can't see it clearly. And I think that perspective from the national media can kind of help you sit back a little bit. We're so close to the program. We hear them talk all the time. With anybody who follows or covers the program, it's life. LSU football is life. So I think sometimes we can get a little bit too close to things to see it for what it is. The response from the national media kind of helped me to bag back a little bit. You look at the circumstances surrounding the game, especially now that you have the news about Nussmeier being hurt. So if you're Brian Kelly, you're thinking, okay, we just coached around a disadvantage that nobody even knew that we had. And you're still pumped up. It's Florida. It's a big win. It's a rival. And it's your first SEC game of the year. So, yeah, you pumped up. You don't want anything to take away from that shine at that moment. The last thing that kind of helped me to soften my stance on what I thought about what Kelly said was something that came from a different coach at a different program. And as a matter of fact, it's a program that LSU played a few weeks ago in Clemson, Dabo Swinney. Dabo Swinney is always there when you think that you have an annoying coach or a stubborn guy at the helm of your program. You look over to South Carolina, and Dabo is the standard for stubbornness. So Dabo recently asked about his struggles, and let's see, what exactly did he say? Hey, listen, it's Clemson's. If Clemson is tired of winning, they can send me on my way, and that's kind of his go-to move. Anytime he takes any kind of criticism, he kind of in a halfway threatens to leave. Then he kind of attacks the fans. if you don't believe in us now, you didn't believe in us anyways. It's real Livingston Parish of them. So it don't matter. You weren't all in anyway. So you hear comments like that, and you look at where Clemson is at 1-2. So look, I was frustrated watching that LSU offense on Saturday night. You could tell it was disjointed. It wasn't what it was supposed to be. Of course, hearing about Nussmeier's injury kind of adds, it kind of gives you a little clarification on what was going on and why things looked the way they did, why the play calling was the way it was, why the game played out like that. And you want to give even more credit to what LSU did. Dabo's comments make you appreciate, or should make you appreciate, what you have even more so. If you're an LSU fan, the bigger picture in this is appreciating where you are. And to help kind of accentuate this point, I want to compare LSU and Clemson as a program, not just as a team this year. And a couple weeks ago, I mentioned that Clemson would be looked at a lot differently if Clemson was in the SEC. Look, there's no way around it. They face a different schedule. It's a different level of competition. And they kind of got enough gimmies on the schedule where you can lose some big games. I mean, you're looking at a Clemson program that played SEC teams 3 times last year and lost all 3, and they were a playoff team. So let's look at the last 3 years. Last 3 years for both of these programs. Clemson is 30-11 from 22 to 24. LSU was 29-11. And coming into the season, look, this is not that long ago. Coming into the season, everybody was super high on Clemson. And there were some pretty nervous people, not so much in the building at LSU, but as far as the fan base, you didn't know what you were going to get from the defense. You didn't know what you were going to get from the offensive line. So there was a kind of a hesitance to buy in completely. Everybody was bought in on Clemson. You got the NFL draft boards with all these projected first-round picks that were on the team last year, and they didn't really beat anybody of any significance last year. But anyway, all right, so 30-11 for Clemson, 29-11 for LSU. That's one game off. And consider the difference in competition that LSU has played. Also consider that starting in 2022, Brian Kelly was taking over a program that was sub 500 with less than 40 scholarship players. So there's no way these two programs should be this close in winning percentage when you consider the different challenges that both of these coaches took on. Again, anytime that Sweeney takes any kind of criticism, which we hold Brian Kelly to a high standard. And the rants, the post-game rants, it gets old, especially after a bad loss like a USC. But you got to appreciate the fact that he doesn't really handle things quite as bad as what we might think when you look around. Dabo, he's stubborn. Won't buy into the transfer portal. Still, he took a couple, but he's still not completely bought in. He's defiant, and he is slow to embrace change. And in contrast, you look at Brian Kelly. He saw, okay, so you come in 2022, you had a good year, but it turns out that year was fool's gold because you come in and you win the West, and I think as a program, you might have thought that things were a little bit easier than what the reality was, and maybe you took some things for granted. Maybe you took it for granted that you were going to hit in the portal, and you didn't have to be as structured and organized as you are right now. Maybe you took it for granted that you were set on your coaching staff when 2023, you found out that that defensive coordinator you had was not what's up. I don't know what happened. I mean, he had a decent year in 22, completely fell off the map in 23, and cost LSU a playoff appearance when you had one of your best offenses ever with Jaden Daniels. Say what you want about Brian Kelly, but he learned from these challenges. He learned from these things. So you look at these two programs, and you think about it. If you're an LSU fan, where would you want to be? Where would you rather be? Who would you rather have as a coach? Look, we won't take away from anything that Dabo has done. Uh, of course, he's won his championships. He's had a hell of a run at Clemson. He was going toe to toe with Alabama when nobody else in the country was. But like before, Georgia was built up to where it is now. So you give him credit for that. But that's in the past, and you look at things for right now. Right now, these programs, I think, are trending in different directions. If you look at what LSU has done to this point this year, if you look at who was projected to be the more talented team, and you look at that first game, and I think it's fairly obvious who was more talented. Even though some of these guys might not be that high on the draft boards right now, by April of 2026, they will be. And Clemson, I won't call them lucky, but they were very fortunate to be as close as they were at the end of that game. So, and this segment isn't to rag on Clemson. It's more so to look. Let's get everybody to kind of appreciate where you are, because admittedly, my initial thoughts after the win on Saturday night was, what the hell is going on with the offense, and where did all the creativity go running the ball, and why can't we throw it farther than 5 yards? Things could be a lot worse, to say the least. Things could be a lot worse. And you compare that to Clemson, who is, I think, obviously underachieving as a program in a lesser conference. They're also underutilizing their talent. Look, you can talk to a different show depending on where you are, who might have some biases. NFL scouts are not biased. Draft boards are not biased. They might kind of drift towards a certain last name a little prematurely, but for the most part, these are guys who are trying to draft to either give you the best information possible so they can sell it, or to build their team up. So there's obviously talent on that Clemson roster, but they're not living up to their potential. So it's just a reminder. Live in the moment. You're 3-0. You beat Florida. You're undefeated. You're number 3 in one poll. You're number 4 in another poll. I think the offense will come around. I think, like me, like myself, a lot of people are probably more understanding of LSU's offensive struggles, considering the Nussmeier injury. But injury notwithstanding, just appreciate where you are, live in the moment. Look, I had 5 teams. I ranked before the season LSU's 5 toughest games on lastwordonsports.com, and LSU has already beaten 2 of them, and you've done it with no offense. So I think that's a good spot. So start there, appreciate it, move on. On that note, so you've beaten 2 of those teams. LSU has already played quarter of their season, played 3 games. So you got 25% of your season down, and it's not enough of a sample size to say what LSU is, or really, I think it's still probably too early for rankings. We like to look at them, we like to talk about them, but what do they really mean when you have 0-2 teams ranked in the top 25? I don't care who you played. Shout out Notre Dame. If you're 0-2, there is no good reason you should be in the top 25. Anyway, beyond that, let's look at some expectations we set for LSU before the season and talk about where we were right. But if we're going to do that, we also have to talk about where we were wrong. So leading up to the season, where we were right, I talked about Blake Baker's impact on the defense, and I think his history, it kind of speaks for itself what he's done other places, what he did at LSU last year. So I thought that with a second year in the system and with better players to work with at his disposal, that LSU would be much better. Now, I'll admit, I wouldn't say that I thought they were going to be dominant. I thought that they would be better, and I said that on this show. We were right. We were right about the LSU defense, and a lot of that credit goes to Blake Baker and his attacking defense and his masterful use of Harold Perkins. You also got to give the players credit. So we were right on that one. LSU right now is 25th in total defense and 11th in scoring defense. Of course, is the most important stat you want to look at. And also, you're there. You're a top 25 defense by any metric you look at, and you've played a much tougher schedule than probably 80% of the rest of the country. You started off at Clemson, and you hosted Florida at home. People are kind of discounting Florida like you should have beat them by more. Look, Florida was, up until today, they were a 3-point underdog at Miami. Miami could very easily be the number one team in the country right now when you look at how Carson Beck is playing and what they did to Notre Dame. So, look, and you'll see as the season plays out, these are good wins. These are, we'll find out exactly how good they are, but I think it's unquestionable that these are good wins. So that defense is living up. It's more than living up to the expectations we had for it. We talked about the depth across the team and specifically on defense. Right again. We're right about how deep this team is. Look, it says it all when you got a backup safety who played like 9 or 10 snaps in a whole game and got 2 picks. You lose a first-team All-American at linebacker, and you never miss a beat. You get guys like Devon Keys and Zach Weeks to come in as a true freshman. Keys is a sophomore, and you never skip a beat on defense. You have a starting cornerback in Ashton Stamps who can started in 24 and can barely get on the field. Your third guy is DJ Pickett, who's an athletic freak of nature at 6'5". Quarterback's got like a 45% quarterback rating when throwing his way as backups. The depth has been unbelievable. No matter who's playing on the defensive line, whether you got Guillory in or McKinley or Bro or Gooden, all of these guys are disruptive. Pyburn and Payton on the ends. Relaford, who I thought would have a huge year, has played sparingly now. He's played well, but it just goes to show how deep this defense is. And that was another one that we were right on, fortunately, for LSU. Before the Clemson game, we talked about matchups. We talked about how Clemson would attack and how LSU matched up against that attack. And I felt that LSU's long and physical cornerbacks would do well against Clemson's bigger receivers. Now, I thought that Antonio Williams in the slot could pose some problems, but unfortunately he got hurt early in the game and wasn't able to make much of an impact. But as far as Brian Wesco and TJ Moore, I think LSU did a great job against them. They had decent numbers. I think Wesco was like 5 for 66 yards, something like that. But they never really threatened the defense. The plays they made off of pick routes, rub routes, it's kind of scheming them open. I think Moore made one play against Woodland where he just straight one-on-one beat him. And it's still great coverage. He just made a play, so credit to him. But LSU did match up well against those guys, and we were right again on that one. Where we were wrong, unfortunately, we got to talk about that too. So leading up to the season, so I just talked about that depth in the defense, and I thought that the linebacker room is going to be thin. I had my worries at the linebacker position on if something happened to Whit Weeks, whether it was hurt or a targeting call, or something happened to Devon Keys, who I expected to start. But West Weeks has been able to step up and play well in their starting role. I thought that they were pretty thin. So with West Weeks stepping up the way he has this year, now you got Devon Keys as a backup. So that's automatic depth right there. I think I was impressed with Keys last year. So if you got him coming off the bench, you're already better than I thought you were as far as backups go. Um, as far as who I thought would maybe step up, I had some freshmen in mind. And it's not to say that these guys haven't touched the field, but haven't exactly, had a huge impact in Charles Ross, a speedy freshman, and Jaden Breaker. I think he's a Georgia native, true freshman. He's a bigger guy, 225, 230 range. So those were my guys I had circled to kind of come in and help supplement in that linebacker room. And yeah, needless to say, haven't seen a whole lot of them. But look, it's a long season to go. These guys have some long careers to go. It hasn't happened up to this point. I was wrong on that. And I think a lot of people can join me in this one. As far as being wrong in preseason expectations, the LSU offense. This is the big one. The LSU offense we thought was going to be spectacular. You saw Barry and Brown making plays in the spring. You saw highlights of them if you couldn't see practice in the fall. You look at how many guys you added to a star-studded group. You already had guys like Aaron Anderson and Chris Hilton. Then you add guys like Brown and Nick Anderson, who's been getting healthier and healthier. And you're just thinking, look, this is going to be a very dynamic group. You got a second-year running back who should be better and can maybe help open things up for him. And you got a returning quarterback. So we really expected LSU to just take off offensively. And the bigger worry was, can the defense be good enough? Can this defense be a top 30 defense and just give the offense a chance? Like, don't be a liability. It's what we were hoping for from the defense. And it's been the opposite. But it's been a pleasant surprise. The defense has really been dominant. Defense has been dominant. The offense has been struggling, but now we kind of got a better idea why with the news of Nuss's injury. So that being said, those are good surprises, bad surprises, things that we were right on, things that we were wrong on. 3 games into the season, these were 3 significant games. So now let's talk about who has stood out. Our offensive MVP, which was kind of tough because you want to show some love to that O-line. I really want to recognize Braylon Moore for being so consistent at center in such a critical position, coming out and playing hurt. If you saw the Louisiana Tech game, there's no way possible he could have been 100% against Florida, but he came out, did his thing, got a couple of holding calls. He did what he had to do. Got to get by you. Hey, look, make the referee call it. Make the official call it. But, yeah, I did want to give Braylon Moore some attention on that. I want to give Caden Durham some love. Even though he hasn't had, crazy numbers, it's not all his fault. But I think the unquestioned MVP on offense to this point is Aaron Anderson. And I say it every week. I'm feeling like a broken record at this point. Aaron Anderson is your best receiver. He is your best offensive weapon. And even at 5'9" or 5'8", whatever he is, the more he plays, the more you're just wondering, could he be the next first-round guy? And I know that sounds crazy to talk about first round for a 5'8" wide receiver, but he just continues to make plays. He's leading the team in receptions. But it's not so much the numbers or the production. He's just a player's player. Like, he plays smart ball. His awareness. Look, I hadn't played NCAA in 1,000 years, but if they got an awareness trait on there, it's got to be 99. If you have an awareness trait for Aaron Anderson, it's got to be 99. He knows where he is at all times, stretching the ball out, getting first downs, understanding his leverage when he catches the ball, which way I'm going to cut after I catch the ball. In the open field, if it's one guy, he's probably not going to touch him, let alone tackle him. And anytime you need a clutch play, you need that big first down, that big touchdown. You get a penalty in this 1st and 20, and you need to kind of get out of that hole. Uh, it's wild to see how consistent Aaron Anderson is in that role. He's a leader. He's a guy from Louisiana, went to Alabama, came back home, and he is the unquestioned MVP of the LSU offense, if you ask me. Defensive MVP was a little tougher. The defensive most valuable player could go a few different ways. Whit Weeks is leading the team in tackles by a wide margin. Mansour Delane has completely changed the way LSU can play defense with his coverage one-on-one and not needing any help. I can't say enough about how much freedom that gives a guy like Blake Baker. Okay, he's got this number one guy over here. I don't have to worry about him. Now I can free my safeties up. Now I can have Halsey, AJ Halsey can just play center field. Deshaun Spears can watch the quarterback. You can get so exotic when you got a guy that can cover like that, and you also rushing the quarterback at a pretty high clip. So the lane has been huge, and I was tempted to go his way, but you got to go to number 7. LSU's defensive MVP is Harold Perkins, and his numbers might not reflect that, but Perkins been all over the field, and even though the numbers might not be there, his prints are all over the field, all over the game, and he's a guy that is just. I think he's exceeded expectations for 25. You heard good things in the fall about how healthy he was, how fast he was, how explosive he was, but to see it and to see the way he's being used after going 3 years now of trying to figure it out, it is fun to watch. He's a difference maker, and it's not really anybody else like him in college football. Stats just don't tell the story, and his impact is not in one area or one part of the defense. His impact has been awesome in the run game. When you see him see things develop, when you get that end zone angle, and you can see him watch the offense and see things develop, and see it so quickly that the offensive lineman can't get a hand on him, or if they got a running back trying to block him, whatever. If he diagnoses so much better than he did when he was younger as a linebacker. And I'm talking about just straight in the run game, coming downhill. He diagnoses it. He sees it so much quicker than he used to. In the passing game, he was supposed to be a liability. And Perkins is almost getting a pick almost every game. And sometimes it's in man, sometimes it's in zone. That's the fun thing about it. Like, his understanding of the game matches his athletic ability. And he's been a nightmare for opposing offenses. When you look at that skill set, that helps you on the field, but it also helps you leading up to the game day, because offenses have to devote so much time to figuring out where is this guy going to be, how are we going to account for him, and how can we attack. Perkins has been a dog, and I want to make sure he gets the credit that's due, because he got criticized. People got frustrated. And look, it's not a lot that people can do about injuries. You get hurt, you get hurt. That's part of the game. So it's kind of discouraging when you see some of the remarks made about him over the years. Now, if you want to talk about his play, is he not catching on that linebacker? Is he not shedding blocks? All right, that's one thing. But a lot of his lack of success wasn't really on him, if you ask me. So now, today, we're going to give him his flowers. LSU's defensive MVP after 3 games is Harold Perkins. And let's talk about the team as a whole. To this point, you got a long way to go, but I got to give him a B+ right now. If you're going to grade him, I give him a B+. And I was tempted to give him an A, because you're 3-0. What else do you want? You're 3-0. You beat 2 quality teams. What else do you want? But look, injuries or no injuries, the offense has to get better. I don't care if it's Nuss or somebody else, or if you got to figure out your play calling and how you're gonna account for his shortcomings right now until he can get to 100%. But the offense that we have seen is only going to take you so far. So if you give him an A, you're saying that the team can't get any better, and that's obviously not the case. So B plus, giving credit where it's due, but you still have some things to work on. And when you think about it, what better place can you be? You're undefeated, and you also have some obvious flaws. So nobody's getting complacent. I think the team, players and coaches understand that there's still a lot of work to do. So if you can understand that without taking any L's, that's a good place to be. That's a good spot. Going into Southeastern, a lot of people want us to sit, get healthy. Kelly obviously wants him to play. He says he needs the time. So if he says that, it tells me two things. One, he thinks that his health is coming along well enough to where he can play and that won't set him back. And two, maybe he does need the time. Maybe he does need more reps. Maybe this can be a great opportunity for Nuss to come in and maybe try his luck pushing the ball down the field against, honestly, an inferior opponent. And shout out Southeastern. Got love for Southeastern and the Lions and anything in Louisiana, really, to be honest. But if you want to kind of get somebody comfortable, this is the game to do it. This is the game to do it. So if Kelly wants to play him, hey, look, play him. I'm good with that. Got a comment here from my boy Jackson Johnson. What's up, Tiger Nation? Tell your friends and family, the cashiers at Kroger or Rouse's or anywhere else about the magic that Lewis brings on LSU. Appreciate the kind words, Jackson. And y'all listen to him. Tell anybody you see about the magic I'm bringing. And tell them to like and subscribe. And tell them even if they don't watch it, just click on it. That helps too. So thanks to Jackson for that comment. So back to Southeastern game. Got a 6:30 kick, SEC network. Thank goodness it's not on SEC Plus or something stupid that you can't catch or it's hard to find. You got some things you can work on against Southeastern. And you talked about Nuss, but you got to work on that running game too. You got to work on that running game. And look, just because it's Southeastern, don't just line up and hand the ball off and say, let's move people out of the way. Now, you need some of that. You need to do some of that. You need to let these offensive linemen get loose and move forward, knock some people off the ball, gain some confidence. But you also can't get stale as a play caller because you're playing somebody who is considered, not in an SEC level of competition. I think the creativity has to come back to the running game, regardless of the opponent. The inside zone, outside zone, the Caden Durham is look, let's make the defense think. Let's make them hesitate. Let's get some more motion involved. Let's see some more variation in the plays that are run, like how you run it and who is running it. I want to see your wide receivers back in the backfield. If it's not broken, don't fix it. Until somebody stops it, look, make them stop it. Let's get Xavier Thomas back there. Look, Xavier Thomas is also one of those guys I could have talked about for offensive MVP because he helps you in so many different ways. So continue to get the ball in his hands. Barry and Brown, continue to get the ball in his hands. You got to get some life and some creativity back in that running game. And explosive plays will come, but they're not going to come just from Nussmeier turning around and handing it to Caden Durham when everybody in the world knows it's coming. You want to be unpredictable. And look, if you're going to play Nussmeier in this game, if you say that he needs the reps, then look, screen passes, that's not going to help him. That's not. Those aren't the kind of reps that he needs. Let's push the ball down the field. Let's for somebody to hold Chris Hilton. Like, look, if they double him, they double him. Let's show them that LSU is willing to do that. They're willing to push the ball down the field to Barry Brown or Hilton, or I mean, you got more guys. Payson still is trying to work his way into the rotation. But yeah, you gotta open this passing game up and don't play him just to play him. Don't take reps away from a Colin Hurley to put nuts in the game and hand the ball off 40 times. Look, push the ball down the field, get them comfortable. You got to get in more of a flow offensively, and you can't wait until you're going to Ole Miss to do it. You can't wait until South Carolina comes to do it. This is the time to do it because you got to buy, and that's when you can get them healthy. You got a lot of time to get some reps, some practice reps, get healthy, come up with different game plans or just different ideas about how you want to attack people. But if Nuss is going to play against Southeastern, then let's get him some valuable reps. All right. So we've established that you're going to play Nuss, but there are some things to gain from playing Southeastern. Speaking of quarterbacks, recently LSU got its 2027 quarterback in Peyton Houston. So let's show Peyton Houston some love. Peyton Houston is a 5'11", around 200-pound quarterback from Evangel in Shreveport. Everybody in the world wants him, and it's easy to see why. So here you see Houston. He plays in Evangel, and look, Evangel will play anybody. So he's playing against good competition. They go all over the state. They will go outside of the state to look for competition. And when you look at Houston, first of all, you're looking at a guy that a lot of people wanted. You might have heard me talk about his measurables at 5'11" and 200. So, man, you got you're looking for a 5'11" quarterback? Yes, you are looking for a 5'11" quarterback if he can make throws like this. He's got touch, he's got accuracy, he's got zip. And look, anytime you're getting a guy that, okay, so came down to LSU and Oklahoma, Texas wanted them, Clemson wanted them. Name a team, name a blue blood, name a popular team, or a quarterback factory. USC offered them. They wanted Peyton Houston. Look, don't sleep on this. This is a huge pickup for LSU. The first pickup of that 2027 class. And before I talk about the magnitude of this commitment, I want to talk about him and make sure I'm giving him the credit that's due. This is a guy, like I said, he can make all the throws. He's very accurate, but he's also mobile. He's not run first by any means, but he can create some space. He can create some time under pressure, and he can take off if that's the last resort. But he wants to throw it, pinpoint throws down the field against a high level of competition. Now, when it comes to the significance of this commitment, it's always big when you get your quarterback. Other recruits, they want to know who else is coming. Now, you're going to have guys that like LSU. LSU has an appeal to it, especially if you were a visitor at this game this past Saturday. So some people are going to grow up like an LSU. Some people are going to come to LSU and visit and fall in love. But it always helps when you have that star quarterback. People can say, hey, look, I want to go and play with this guy. But also, there are a lot of big-time quarterbacks in this class, especially in Louisiana. You have guys like Elijah Haven right here in Baton Rouge at Dunno. You have guys like Malachi Ziegler at, I think, Benton, who also is a national recruit. And you have guys like Colton Nussmeier, Garrett Nussmeier's little brother, who's at Flower Mound in Texas, who's not a Louisiana guy, but of course he's a target. So what is this going to mean for these other quarterbacks? You're not seeing a lot of big-time quarterbacks join another one in this day and age. So can LSU get two of these guys? Can you get two and kind of get ahead of it in the age of the transfer portal, where a lot of guys aren't staying 4 years anyway? Well, we get two big time guys. One of them leaves. We just got another one. We throw him in. Hey, we won't go that far right now, but look, the more the merrier. Anyway, huge commitment for LSU and Peyton Houston. And on that note, like and subscribe. Um, Again, enjoy the wins. Don't take it for granted. You're 3-0. Yeah, the offense needs to get better, but appreciate that 3-0. It's a lot of people who wish they could be 3-0 right now. Florida wishes they were 3-0. Clemson wishes they were 3-0. Notre Dame, you could go on and on. And yeah, things are going to have to pick up on the offensive side of the ball, but who's to say they won't? We've seen what this team can do. We've seen what that quarterback can do. So give it time. Everybody calm down. Appreciate the moment. Till next time, like and subscribe. I'll catch y'all later.